Hello, all, and welcome to Progressive Washington. Today, we're going to talk about affirmative action and Initiative 1776. The guests today are Emmanuel Mamo, the Outreach Director for I-1776. The organization is known as Washingtonians Against Discrimination Everywhere, and former State Representative Jesse Wineberry, a legacy of a man who survived politics in the second millennium as a Black man in America. And hopefully we'll have some time to hear a little bit more about that. But we really want to hear about where is affirmative action happening and where is it going in Washington State? And these are the guys that make it happen. So I don't want to take any more floor time. Emmanuel and Jesse, I'm just going to let you guys give your pitch. Please tell us all about what's going on.
Well, I will yield the floor to Emmanuel, who is making things happen, an extraordinary individual, and I think your viewers and listeners ought to know about the exciting young talent in our state, and he is one of them. Graduate of WWU, and I'll yield to him and come back after the star of the show has spoken.
Hi, everyone. My name is Emmanuel. I am a Western grad, like Representative Wineberry mentioned. I was first introduced into electoral politics with the Bernie campaign pretty recently. I was in Iowa, and I was there for a couple months in the cold weather, negative 16 degrees, organizing outside, a little frostbite here and there, of course, and then changed tunes to Nevada. And I did some organizing there, and then finally landed back home in Washington State. Since then, I've been working on the I-1776 campaign, which was formerly I-1000. So some of you might remember that. But yeah, so we have this movement growing. We're trying to get affirmative action back into Washington State like it used to be for decades, before 1998, when we had I-200 become state law, and that repealed affirmative action in Washington State for a lot of communities, and that has created a lot of suffering in those communities and a lot of missed opportunities in those communities. And we want to make sure that, while we move forward, especially after the time that we're in right now in 2020, we want to make sure that we are leaving it better than before we went into 2020. That's what this is really all about. I-1776 is about making Washington more democratic, more inclusive, and making sure that everybody has an opportunity to succeed, because currently that is not the case. And I'll yield to the spear in the fight with I-1000 and now I-1776, who's Representative Jesse Wineberry. He led the fight in the legislature. He was a legislator for 10 years. And so after his time in the legislature, he has led the fight in I-1000. And now he's coming back with I-1776 after being 1% shy on the ballot, as many of you remember last year. Almost 1 million people voted yes on I-17 or I-1000 last year. So we're trying to repeat that, and then this time close on that gap and get the win, and make I-1776 state law. Representative Weinberg.
Well, thank you. The reason I yielded to Emmanuel is because it's his generation that we're working for. Our goal is to keep open, or rather to reopen the doors of opportunity through I-1776 in 4 areas. Number one, education. As Emmanuel pointed out, in 1998, Washington State passed an initiative called Initiative 200, I-200. And when you Google it, you will see that it killed affirmative action, diversity, equity, inclusion in 3 areas. And education, that's from K through 12, as well as higher education, and employment, and in public contracting. As a matter of fact, we have gotten reports from the state of Washington that have done studies on the impacts of I-200 on our entire state, and it showed that women and people of color have lost close to $3.8 billion in economic job generating opportunities. When you talk about systemic sexism and racism, what can be more systemic than a law being passed in a state that bans affirmative action, that helps women and people of color and the disabled and veterans and members of the LGBT community get jobs, get an education, and get an opportunity, if they have a business, to do business with the state? That's what has happened in Washington State. And the unfortunate thing about it is that we're one of only a few states that has done this. 47 out of 50 states still have equity, diversity, inclusion, affirmative action opportunity so that all people can contribute to our economy. Washington State fell into what I call politricks. There's politics. I think we're all familiar with that, but a lot of people have never heard of politricks. But when you look at how I-200 was passed, you can't describe it as anything else. Here it is. I-200 used the image, the voice, and the words of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King to convince people to pass I-200. They called it the Civil Rights Act of Washington, and they had Dr. King in their commercials, at least the voice of Dr. King, saying we cannot judge people based on the color of their skin, but the content of their character. And so everybody thought that that initiative was something progressive, that it was something that was going to create opportunity for people who were being left behind, and they voted for it. Imagine the shock of waking up in 1998, the day after the election, and the news is telling you, Washington, you're one of only a few states in America that has killed affirmative action for all women and all people of color. So fast forward to last year, I want to thank people in your audience, and particularly the Washington Progressive Party, for getting behind and supporting I-1000. We ended up getting more signatures for I-1000 to go on the ballot than any other signature to the legislature in Washington State history. Nearly 400,000 people signed their names on the line to bring equality and justice back to Washington State. The legislature then voted overwhelmingly to put it into law. But then, as the Constitution allows, citizens got together, got signatures themselves to put it on the ballot. And when it went to the ballot, we ended up less than 1% away from bringing equality, justice, and opportunity back to Washington State. So all of the organizations who were behind I-1000 got together right after that election and decided that we would not quit. There's an old saying that in life, it's not how you start that makes a difference, it's how you finish. And so we intend on finishing strong and finishing with a win. And all we ask people to do is go to yes on I-1776, that's the new number for the initiative, 1776, and either print a petition out and get signatures, or print a petition out, sign it, send it back in, or we give you another choice that you've never had before, and that is to go on yes on 1776 and sign your name online for this initiative. And so I thank you for having us here, and I look forward to the discussion.
Yeah, awesome. I'm so glad. I mean, so thankful for you guys' work, and that bit of history is really helpful. That was, before my time is really studying politics, and to hear about how that went down is an eye opener, and not entirely surprising from a progressive, slightly jaded perspective. But it's really nice to hear that hear it laid out like that. But let's talk nuts and bolts for a second. I mean, this is historic. The fact that we get to sign online for the first time in history, that's never happened before, right? You guys are the first to do that. Am I correct that I-1776 is bringing the next generation in signature gathering for initiatives? Because that gives we the people the ability to write everything now. I mean, that's a big deal. So just tell me about that. Tell me about where we are nuts and bolts wise. How many signatures do you need? How much time? When's the cutoff? All that stuff. We need to know these things.
Well, that's a good question. In Washington State, if you want to put something on the ballot, you have to get around 270,000 signatures of registered voters and submit them to the Secretary of State and to qualify being on the ballot. And that may seem like a lot of signatures to a lot of people. I know last year when we first started, it seemed almost impossible. But then we thought about it and we said, how many people are there in Washington State? Well, right now there's over 7 million people in our state. The state has been growing like crazy. And so when you think about it, 270,000 people is really not a lot. And we ended up getting nearly 400,000 last year. In terms of the deadline is July 5th. So we've been out there getting signatures as best as we could, given that we are in the midst of a pandemic and we are in the midst of stay-at-home orders, not just in this state, obviously, but every state. And we can't gather in crowds like we could last year. And so I hate to say this, but the pandemic forced us to come around the table and try to figure out the most innovative way to get signatures and not increase the spread of COVID-19 and not put people's health in jeopardy. And one of the solutions we came up with was to look at the law and see where did the law allow us to actually gain signatures from people without coming in close contact with them and risking their health. And we partnered with DocuSign. A number of people have probably used DocuSign. We developed with DocuSign a unique method of signing a petition with your own finger. In other words, it's not grabbing a signature that's already a file somewhere, a picture of a signature. That's what DocuSign, that's their core business, is to keep your signature secure and on file for you to use no matter where you are in the world. This does not give anyone that opportunity. You have to use your finger or your stylus to actually sign your signature while you're signing the petition. And that enables us to print out petitions over the course of time and take them to the Secretary of State. So our goal is to have people go to yesOn1776.com, sign, join the movement, and make a difference so that we can celebrate over 300,000 signatures that we turn in on July 2nd.
Yeah. Got a question from the audience. Kay is asking how many SIGs you've got so far.
Well, that's a good question. Last year, we were able to track it because it was all manual paper coming in. This time, we're not able to track it as well because we have people who are out there getting signatures right now. They don't have to turn their sheets in, and I'm talking about person-to-person signatures, until June 30th. And so we'll have a better idea of where we are with those signatures. In terms of our online signatures, when we last checked, we were clocking in at about 200 an hour. And so we have to increase that number, obviously. Our hope is that shows like yours and other interviews that we'll be doing this weekend will encourage people to go to the site and sign to support 1776. Our goal is to get that number up to 1,000 signatures an hour, or even higher, up to 5,000 signatures an hour as we head toward July 2nd.
Right, because we have 10 days to cover a lot of ground here, but definitely the juice is there. I mean, the energy is there for this. I know that. So, I mean, we'll do what we can. Make an endorsement graphic, and of course this show. Do you guys have? Do you have little like memes that should be shared around, or is it really mainly just share the website? Is that kind of the primary form of spreading the word?
Well, if I can share with you what one of the DocuSign executives said to us when we told them. They asked us, they said, how many signatures are you trying to get? And we said 300,000, and they laughed. And I figured that was, out of their reach. And I said, well, why are you laughing? You don't think we can do it? And they said, we get about 1 million signatures a day. Mm-hmm. And so if all you're trying to do is 300,000 over a period of time, that's certainly within our reach. And here's the formula. It's a multiplier effect. If an organization of 1,000 people sends the link to another 1,000 people that send the link to another 1,000 people, that's where the multiplier effect continues to go. And you don't have to have a million people participate or 7 million people participate. You only have to have a few thousand people. I mean, we've been endorsed, for example, by the retired public employees of Washington State. They have 10,000 people, 10,000 members that the organization is emailing, and each of them is being told to get 20. And so when you multiply 20 times 10,000, that's 200,000 from one organization potentially. And other organizations, I know that the Bernie-crats have a database or email of supporters and members of about 20,000. And so it's the same multiplier effect there. I'm highly confident that if everybody who signs tells at least 3 to 5 other people in their friends or family to go online to Yes on 1776 and sign, that we will not only meet our number on July 2nd, we're highly likely to beat it.
Yeah, it's definitely an all hands on deck kind of a moment. It feels to me like we can do this and we should do this. I'm just looking for more ways to do it. I'll get on my social media with my the remainder of my lunch break to pound that out on every direction I've got. I know that the Progressive Party team is working on that. I assume I saw that one question, so I assume somebody is looking for questions from the floor. I think this is going to be a short show today because basically we wanted to give you guys space to make this pitch, and I'll actually probably take the rest of the hour to spend time on this. But I wanted to, I want to use all the time that is useful to pitch this idea. I mean, is there anything else you guys want to say about this project? I mean, to some degree, it speaks for itself, obviously. But what? Maybe I don't know. Maybe a story. Maybe I don't know, Representative Weinberry, maybe you could give us a little more history from when things were even more bananas in politics. Like that story was great about, of the politics of 1998 and how I-200 actually tricked the people. I mean, tell me about that, because, the world is dying to hear your voice on this stuff. I mean, I don't know, I'm sure you know that, but talk to us, talk to us about what's real.
Well, I think there's no better time than now to make a difference, to do it in real, peaceful, productive protests. We're all acquainted with peaceful protests, but that's a protest that has a beginning as an end. This is a movement. This is a movement where your strongest protests is not necessarily in the streets, but it's with your finger, it's with your pen. This actually will change a law. When you protest and you use a pen to write a sign to carry in the march or the protest, and that sign says "End systemic racism," "End systemic sexism," there's a beginning to that sign and the visibility and the end. Well, take that same energy and take that same Sharpie pen and sign a petition, because the petition is going to end systemic racism, not just inform people that it exists, but actually dismantle it. I mean, when you talk about I-200, and I'm going to tell you who the author was of I-200. He's a guy that in Washington State, a lot of people know his name. He's right now a candidate for governor. His name is really? Tim Eyman.
That didn't surprise me in the slightest.
This was Tim Eyman's first initiative. Really? So for 22 years, we've had Tim Eyman's knee of I-200 on Washington's neck. Right. Systemic racism that is injected into all of our colleges and universities, into all of our state, county, and local governments, because that's where you cannot have affirmative action or diversity programs to recruit and hire women and people of color. And then, of course, in contracting, we've added a component to 1776 that is public health, because the real stories right now that are not being told are the stories of the Hispanic, Latinx, and Mexican American communities. They are 13% of this population in Washington State. But if you go to the Department of Health's website, you're going to be shocked, because they will tell you that even though that community is only 13% of the population, right now they are over 40% of the infected cases of the coronavirus. From 13% of the population, but 40% of the over 20,000 cases of infections of the coronavirus. Those are people who, many of whom are farm workers, they're undocumented workers, but they're human beings. And we are saying they must be counted so that those communities can know what to do to prevent the diseases that are killing them. Also, 1776 calls upon the state to make sure that everybody, no matter whether they are rich or poor, no matter whether they are male or female, gay or straight, it doesn't matter. Everybody is entitled to a vaccine if they voluntarily request it and consent to it with full information. That is in 1776, because we're already paying for the research and development of the vaccines by all of these pharmaceutical and drug companies that are in a race to get to the FDA with an approved vaccine so they can make literally billions of dollars. These vaccines will not just be available in the United States, they're going to be available all over the planet. And so imagine if each of those vaccines is $100. Imagine if we have to take the vaccine maybe 4 times a year to have the immunity from the coronavirus. We're talking about literally households that don't have enough to buy their current prescriptions, possibly succumbing to the deadly virus if we don't step in now and put into law that they will not have to pay. So that's one of the principles and pillars of I-1776 that obviously did not need to exist in I-1000. So in a way, I'm glad that we have this second chance to make Washington better. And what usually happens is that when Washington does something that's innovative and forward thinking, it's not long before the rest of America follows us.
Right. Yeah. So pertinent on so many levels. I have a couple places I want to go, but first, a question from the floor. Let's go to Emmanuel. Can you answer this one? What's the opposition going to say? You know, what are the people who oppose I-1776 gonna shoot this down with, or fire at it with?
Right. I mean, I think actually this would be a better question for Representative Weinberry, since he was there to deal with the opposition last year.
Sure.
But I'll give my thoughts on it after.
The opposition is Tim Eyman. I mean, we are basically bringing an end to the systemic racism that he injected into Washington State 22 years ago. And so he's going to say that this is somehow reverse discrimination. He's going to say, for example, that if we pass this law, we are going to hurt white males because they're not going to get jobs, they're not going to get businesses, they're not going to be able to get an education, they're not going to be at the front of the line in terms of public health treatments and vaccines. And so we must stop 1776 at all costs. Well, that is an interesting argument, given that the majority of the rest of the United States has affirmative action. They didn't kill affirmative action back in 1998. As a matter of fact, they've expanded it to diversity, equity, and inclusion programs in over 47 states. And guess what? White males are working. White males are owning and running businesses. White males are getting their college education and degrees. There's no discrimination. If anything, it's created opportunities for people in groups that have been left behind. And so they have no examples where affirmative action and diversity has caused the downfall of white males. If anything, it has uplifted everyone.
Yeah, good answer. Emmanuel, do you want to follow up?
Yeah, I mean, I think this was a follow-up to something Jesse was talking about earlier, actually. But I'll follow up on this a little bit and just say, I mean, yeah, the opposition is always going to say, hey, this is hurting us. but they are looking at it from their perspective and their perspective only. And we have made the data available. Over $3 billion has been lost to communities of color because of what is going on and what has been state law since 1998. So over 20 years now. So we know the facts, we know what it's done, and we've seen that Washington State has been hurt by this. So, an argument that says, well, this is not good for me, maybe because it's by helping, communities of color and disadvantaged communities all over Washington, maybe there is more of an obstacle to getting things, but it does not stop any single group from doing anything that they've already, any group that is not in this initiative is not stopped from doing what they've been able to do. For example, like Tim Eyman and the opposition from their side is going to say, hey, white males are going to get hurt by this. No, like Jesse mentioned, they are able to get jobs, they're able to get funding, contracting, they're able to go to school. And that is why you see disproportionate percentages of white people in schools and in contracting. And we do have communities of color. Washington State is a diverse place, but you don't see that reflected in these 4 places. And that is what we're trying to get at with I-1776.
I just want to add a footnote to what Emmanuel said, because last year there was a small contingent of immigrants from China who opposed I-1000. And you can Google it. I think they call the organization as Washington Asians for Equality. They opposed it, and their reasons were very transparent and straightforward. They said, our numbers are climbing at these colleges and universities, and we believe that if we expand the number of seats in these colleges and universities to Hispanics and Latinos and Native Americans and women, that there will be fewer seats for us. They really thought that somehow this law was going to terminate their access to a college education. And so we worked with members of that community since last November, and we have actually drafted language that's now in 1776 that guarantees that any person from a international country who meets the qualifications to be admitted to a university is still going to be admitted. I mean, this is, I think people always think that when you want to expand opportunity for more people, it means less opportunity for them. Right. But what we've shown in Washington State is that when we want to create more seats at the University of Washington, we now create University of Washington Bothell. We now create University of Washington Tacoma. And I'm sure that we're on the verge of probably creating University of Washington Vancouver. WSU has satellite campuses all over the state. And so there's no reason to have a smaller pie. If anything, if we want to create more opportunity, we've shown the ability to create a bigger pie so that more people have benefits. And we now have support from a number of the Asian groups that may have not supported I-1000 before, because they see now that we listened and we care, and we're making sure that they are included in I-1776.
Yeah, beautiful. I'm going to read a comment from the floor, and then I actually want to go back to big picture stuff. This is from Insight and Awareness. We've needed a bill like this for a long time. I've already signed electronically and shared with the Fixed Democracy First group, as well as Jason Call. Jason's running in Congressional District 2.
Yes, I met Jason.
Yeah, warrior. So I just want to circle back to the precedent of this, the fact that we can sign electronically, and to remind people in Washington that we can write the law in this state. We can write the laws in this state. We do not have to wait for legislature to do anything. We can do it. And this is an example of that. And so when you look at this project, when you look at these two gentlemen on either side of me on your screen and what they are doing, we can do that with everything. And now that we can sign electronically, anything that's popular can be pushed through and gotten on the ballot. And I cannot stress the significance of this enough. And in these 10 days, we can prove this concept. What does it actually take to create laws from the ground up? Like we've all been talking about for our entire lives at this point. What is it really going to take? And we also need to get these people elected that we're all talking about getting elected. And we can just do it now, and we've always been able to, but now it's easy in a level that in the third millennium it really should be. Okay, another comment from the floor. This is from Timbuktu. Is there any way for Washington voters to contest the primary election results? I have come to the conclusion that the Bernie Biden votes were flipped. A little bit off topic. The answer is no. It's too late. The deadline for that was quite some time ago. We had the option, and it was going to cost about $4 million. So it was right at the top of COVID-19. And as the spearhead of a campaign trying to do that, I didn't want to ask people for that kind of money when the world was literally blowing up at that time. Interesting question. We could talk about election integrity. We do on this show. Maybe not this exact show, or not this segment on this show. All right. I think we're good on this. I would like to invite you both back. We have a segment coming up on reparations with Dr. William Darity of Duke University, and I feel like your voices are so needed in the current world, from this whole this Black Lives Matter movement to affirmative action, reparations, the whole idea of people of color, especially people of color who have experience like Jesse has, and who are breaking the ice at this level, to actually overturn 22 years of effectively of discrimination, of going backwards. So we'll work that out. I know we're not going to make that plan on right here on camera, but let's see you guys again as soon as possible. And do you guys have anything else you want to add before we close this up? And it can be on any topic. And also, as we leave, can you give me, even if it's to the degree of repeating yourselves, please give us the website, who you are, and everything a second time, just so that we really drive the point home.
Well, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Emmanuel.
I did have something to say, and it's something that me and my sister talk about all the time. And I don't know if anyone here is on social media a lot, but you see what's going on with the recent political climate. People have been, in my opinion, the most active that I've ever seen, especially young people, be in politics. And it's actually very exciting for me, because I've always had a passion for it, but some of my friends didn't. And I'm seeing that passion rise dramatically in the recent months or even weeks. And you see, for example, there was a whole day on Instagram where, it was a blackout day. No one posted, and that was insane to see. So I think that there's a lot of folks that want to take action, and I think that there's a lot of folks that want to take action in a way that's going to matter. And this is it right here. If you are able to come or spend 5 minutes to go sign this, and or go out there when you go protest and sign that, and have this get signed by folks there. Very simple. You go on the website, on1776.com, and you print it out, or you go and sign this. But I know, especially the younger generation is on their phone, 90% of the day. So this is 5 minutes of your day that you can spend getting on this website and making some real change. And I know people are looking for it. So post and share this. And I know that a lot of people are going to want to hop on this new movement with the electronic signature portion of our campaign.
Yeah, and easy to remember too. Yes, on I-1776.com. I mean, that's the year this country was founded.
1776.com, but yes.
Yes, on 1776.com. As in the year we actually at least started the idea of making this democracy happen. Anyway, Representative Weinberry, you want to give us your closing statements?
Well, actually, yes, I want to actually connect that last question that was posed about challenging a governmental decision. In his case, it was an election. And in our case, we're challenging a law that was put on us, even in a way that was deceptive 22 years ago. And we're doing it through what I call direct democracy.
Right.
This is not going to, and hoping to elect somebody who we then have to hope will do the right thing once they're in office. And then we hope it's the exact thing that we need and within the time we need it. This is direct democracy. And the good thing about Washington State is that our Constitution for our whole lifetime has given us this tool, the tool of an initiative to gather signatures. Right. We're doing it on the state level, but the tool is there on the city level, on the county level, on the community level. The good news is that the technology has now enabled the initiative process to no longer be democracy for the wealthy. Anytime before now, to get 300,000 signatures, it meant spending literally millions of dollars. You can Google the initiatives that have come before us the previous years. Most of them have been funded by big corporations, by billionaires, some who are progressive and have put billionaire dollars behind progressive issues, like gun safety. That was an initiative partially funded by the late Paul Allen and Nick Hanauer, both billionaires. But we are now using technology to bring democracy to the people. And I need to let you know something. The Republican Secretary of State's office is not happy about this because we are abiding by the law. And they are telling people that they will only accept what is called a wet signature. This is important. We have this in writing in emails from the Secretary of State's office. And we have contacted the Secretary of State and we asked, where is a wet signature? And so you know what they mean by that. They mean a signature that comes out of ink from a pen onto the paper, wet. And we said, where is that requirement in the law? You know what they told us yesterday? It's not in the law. Yes, we have an email from an executive at the Secretary of State. It took him all day. I guess they were trying to find it. And they finally sent an email that it's not in the law. The only thing that's in the law is that the signature must be handwritten, whatever device you use, whether it's a pen, whether it's a pencil, whether it's crayon, or whether it's your finger on on your computer or your phone. This is the real handwritten signature, probably for the first time in our history, the finger on our hand to sign our name. And so we urge you to call the Secretary of State's office, demand that she comply with the law and not continue to tell people that these signatures are not within the law because they're a wet signature. No wet signature has ever been required in the history of our state. We are giving the signature that is required, and that is a handwritten signature. And I can't wait to turn all of your signatures in on July 2nd.
Right. And then you get to, and presumably if they challenge that, you get to take them to court and create the precedent for this. Am I right? And that's where this is going. And I love everything about this campaign, but the thing for me that is most exciting is that you're literally about to change history on the ability to sign digitally for an initiative in Washington State so the people can write the laws. I mean, effectively. And as you mentioned before, it's been money. It's been about money writing the laws. Ask any of the whole Washington group, how hard it was to get all those signatures. Well, we can change that. And the law says we can. And right here next to me are the guys who are actually doing that. So all hands on deck. Let's do this. Yes, on 1776.com. We have, 11 days to make this happen. And I appreciate you guys. We'll see you soon for reparations talks. Anybody else want to add anything before we wrap this up?
Well, thank you for having us. And thank you for spreading the word. Work so that we use the multiplier effect. If we have to go to court on this thing, we're ready to go to court. Mm-hmm. The law is on our side. Now we just need the people to join the movement, get Tim Eyman's knee off Washington's neck by signing I-1776.
Yeah, right on. All right. Thanks, guys. Let's take it out, Oz.
Thank you, everyone.
you.